Hey, today I just want to talk a little bit about some of the Nitro engine options from OS. As you've seen in some of my previous videos, I ran this OS Speed T1204. It makes about 1 3/4 horsepower. Fantastic engine. The carburetor on it is just amazing. I mean, it holds a tune so easily, and as you've seen in my other videos, you know, it has a lot of throttle response, very crisp, as well as the throttle when you let off, it settles right back down to idle. It's very easy to find a good tune for it, and you know, it holds the tune. The downside is the power band. So this motor is, to put it lightly, is a handful. You know, I'm running about 120 grams or so of rear weight in my truck, and you know, I've spent a lot of time optimizing the setup, and it's a lot to handle, especially if you know you're in low grip conditions. I think when you have medium grip, like for example an outdoor groove track, or if you're racing on indoor clay or outdoor clay, you certainly can use a motor like this and put the power down to the ground. But if you're racing on outdoor low grip like loam or something like that, or dusty and dry, I really don't recommend this motor, especially people that are new to gas truck. So, but with that being said, I've had some questions about the tune, you know, saying that it runs good and everything. So I just wanted to share what my settings are on my carburetor right now. My high speed needle is set at, here just a second, I have that set at 0.31 millimeters. So as you can see here, 0.31 millimeters for the high needle. For the low speed needle, I have that set at 0.35 millimeters. Okay. The mid speed needle I actually have at the factory setting, which is, I believe, flush. Okay, it looks like it's pretty much flush. So at that point, you know, I wouldn't really touch that unless you really, you know what you're doing when it comes to tuning a mid-speed needle on a carburetor. As far as the idle adjustment, I like to set my idle gap, whatever the factory settings are. I believe on this one it's 50 thousandths is the idle gap. So that's actually really critical, no matter what type of engine you have, is to make sure you first set your idle gap before you do anything. And I believe the factory does that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But something to keep in mind. So that's the OS Speed. So let's say that you race on low grip or loamy conditions, dry and dusty, or if you're just a beginner to gas truck, I highly recommend you pick up a OS Max 12 TG version 4. You can buy these from Ignite. You can get them from OS directly. You can get them on any of your, get them at your local hobby shop or any of your favorite online hobby retailer, as well as you can actually get these through the Drake Racing. And to be completely clear here, I'm not sponsored by the Drake Racing. This is actually the first time I've used a Ebis broken-in motor from M Drake, and to say the least, you know, I was extremely impressed. Even the first tank, the engine felt like it was drivable, and it was crisp. A little, you know, obviously fat because it was at the factory settings, but it really only took about 3-4 tanks before it really was feeling like it was almost ready to race. So I ended up putting 5 tanks through mine on the street with it, and it slowly crept up into a race tune. Right now, about, I would say, maybe an hour out on the high end from being in a full race tune. And I'm just going to run it like this a little bit, just slightly rich for a little bit here until the motor completely loosens up. It does have a little bit of pinch still in it, so you know, I don't want to lean it out too much and make sure it has proper lubrication. But as far as my carburetor settings, I can't get in here to measure them, but except for the high speed needle, which I will do real quick for you. So my high speed needle I have set at 0.82 millimeters. All right. Now the low speed needle I have set actually 6 hours leaner than the factory settings. Okay, I can't get in there and measurement, but I know I have it at 6 hours. So I think that's a good starting point if you're looking for a race tune. As far as the carburetor idle setting, I have that at the factory, you know, the 50 thousandths idle gap. I actually did lower the idle slightly from the factory. Roughly, I would say about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours at most from the factory to get it to settle down to where I wanted it. Now, all these carburetor things, again, they depend on, what's going on in the environment, the temperature outside, the altitude density, the humidity. There's a lot of things that go into play. I do also want to note that I run 30% TNR fuel in my .12 engines, and I've had a lot of success with it. I know a lot of guys run 20%, maybe some 15 or 16%, but I prefer 30. I think it gives a nice crisp throttle response, and I think that the engines just tend to run a little bit cleaner and crisper. So just my opinion. But anyway, I will go ahead and flip on a video of this OS 12 TG running on tank number 5. So you can kind of hear with that EBIS broken procedure, if you follow the process, what the engine can feel like. And now this is not at the full race tune, keep that in mind. So it does run very, very well. I'm very impressed with it. So I can't wait to get on the track. I'm hoping to get up there this weekend and do a little bit of testing and see how this thing shakes out. Until next time. The next thing I want to talk about is the clutch setups that are preferred for each type of engine, whether you run a stump puller like an OS Speed, or if you have like a TZ or something like that, or even there's a FX option that makes about 1.5 horsepower, and there's some other options as well out there that I can't think of right now. So basically what I have found is with the lower horsepower engines, what I mean by that is anything that's around a 1 horsepower, maybe 0.9 horsepower. In this case, the 12 TG is 0.88 horsepower. I highly recommend to run Ignite's optional 2-shoe aluminum shoe clutch. And when you run that, I would go ahead and run the 1.1 millimeter springs, which are these springs here. Remember, you got to trim them to get them on there. So there is a video on Ignite's YouTube channel where they walk through that process. Now, if you are a beginner to gas truck, you may want to go ahead and try the 3-shoe clutch that comes with the kit, and the 1.0 springs. This will be very forgiving and easy to drive. It's not going to spin out on you. Now, if you need a little bit more grab, what you can do is try the 1.1 springs with the 3-shoe clutch in composite shoes. And then you can also trim your shoes, 2 or up to maybe 3 millimeter, and try that. And that'll be kind of like a middle ground. Now, if you really want an aggressive grab, which is what I prefer, at least because of the track that I run on is got some pretty large jumps. I like to run the 1.1 springs with the 2-shoe aluminum clutch, and I don't touch my shoes. Some guys actually drill out the shoes to lighten them. But it's all personal preference. It's going to grab a little harder. Now, as far as with the OS Speed, so the problem I had with this motor is when I ran the composite shoes and the 3-shoe clutch, I was basically blowing through this clutch. It just never could quite get to direct drive mode. So I tried the 2-shoe aluminum clutch, and it transformed the truck. I mean, it made this thing an absolute screamer. The problem is it makes it a handful to drive because the throttle response is just so crisp and right now. What I do recommend doing is if you're going to run a big power motor and you're going to use the aluminum 2-shoe clutch, I would go ahead and don't touch your shoes, leave them the full weight, as well as, don't shorten them or anything like that. And go ahead and run the 1.0 springs. It's a little better. It's going to grab hard, but you're not going to blow through the clutch at least. So again, I would not recommend running this motor unless you're in at least medium grip conditions.